St. Helens.
And we are live.
You should send this picture to that biologist.
For real.
For real. Hunt for Success podcast, Emory. Excited to have you on.
Again.
I'm excited to be here.
Dude, that picture is crazy. So
yeah, I'm gonna jump to the screen capture here.
For those of you who missed Emory's first podcast with us, it was in the middle of the Pacific Crest Trail. And we can dive into exactly what that is and define all that in a second. But this picture of the billy goat that was on Mount St. Helens.
Yep.
Wow. And where out on the mountain was that?
That was over on the Ape Canyon side, so Plains of Abraham.
Okay.
Area. That was taken the weekend after Memorial. I want to say, is it Memorial Day weekend that's in the spring?
Labor Day.
No,
spring. It was a Memorial.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're kind of down lower because the snow's still up there a little bit. So you can, if you go up there around that time, they're down a lot lower.
Did you see a lot of them?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's good. That's really good to see. Because the populations were really low at one point, right? And that's why they're doing the survey.
So with the survey, they did this year. They got some funding from SCI, and they were able to either the day after or 2 days after we did the ground survey. They were able to do it in a helicopter, and the numbers were even better than they anticipated from the helicopter.
Oh, sweet.
So a couple hundred goats up on Mount St. Helens now. Yeah, so I want to say 3 years ago, they were thinking like low hundreds. And
what are they going to do with that?
And then, well, at some point,
they're going to have to thin them out, right?
Well, at some point, if the herd is strong enough or the population is great enough, they could possibly open some, single tags, for goat hunting.
Oh, that'd be crazy.
So it's a possibility.
And SCI, for those who don't know, are you familiar with SCI? It's Safari Club International.
Oh, cool.
Probably the largest, or the largest animal conservation nonprofit. And they raise millions and millions of dollars for animal conservation. So,
awesome.
Great place to go donate, go and sign up and be a member. It really is. So you're back. How long have you been back?
I finished the trail on September 2nd. Across the border on September 2nd, came back into normal civilization and normal society, and a couple days later.
And when you came on, it was in May, June? No, it was early May, right?
No, I think it was like July.
Yeah,
July?
it was middle of summer.
Yeah. Yep, because Jess had her birthday and I was home for, it was like the 7th.
Okay.
No, the 11th.
You came on over the summer.
Yep.
And you looked thin then.
Yeah, probably so.
And you said before we started that you'd lost 20 pounds?
Yeah, I weighed myself. I didn't get to weigh myself until I got back home, which was a few days later, and got to a scale. But when I weighed myself, I was 20 pounds lighter. So I'm guessing I was
From when though? 20 pounds lighter
from when I started.
When you started the trail.
Yeah. Wow. So I was at 141 when I weighed myself a few days after the trail, which I'm guessing I probably was 139 or 138.
Probably even
because
less.
you can gain weight pretty quick over just a weekend of not burning thousands of calories.
Did you keep track of your body fat percentage?
I didn't. No, I didn't really have a whole lot to lose in the first place. I was only 160 when I'm 5'8" and 160 when I started out, so it's not like I had a ton to lose. But I was pretty shredded when I got back.
And speaking of shredded, I heard that you're having a hard time with your feet.
Yeah, my feet, when you walk on your feet for 2,000 miles in a single summer or more, the pads just get smashed down, and it just, when you're walking on like hardwood floors, they'll come back, I'm hoping, but it's kind of hard to stand for long periods of time in uncomfortable shoes, or I just don't walk around the house unless I'm on carpet, because your feet, just any bone that would be touching the ground is touching the ground. It's just very thin pads down there. And it's just the nature of the beast.
And the only way you just have to let it heal.
Yeah, I guess. I really don't know if it's going to come back. I'm hoping it does, but I posted the Aftermath article. I have this, so I started with a foot problem early on, and then it kind of, I'd been battling it the entire trail, so some days were worse than others if I went over rocky terrain.
What was the foot problem?
I don't know. I want to get an x-ray just to see if there was something in there.
Like a fracture?
Yeah. what kind of felt like my foot was breaking. Like, you know, you just walk on something, it felt like a stress fracture. But, you know, I was hiking with a corpsman, and he's like, dude, I don't think it's like, if your foot was broken, you'd be done. And I'm like, well, okay, cool. Like, that's his opinion. And so I listened to him. I'm like, okay, I'm not concerned. Like, he clearly thinks that it's not a fracture. It felt like one, and it really, really hurt. And so, you know, I walk around the house now, and I battled it the entire time. It never really got 100% better, but I could walk on it. You know, it was fine. And it would flare up from time to time. But so the only way I can describe it is like on the outside of my foot, like where the pinky toe would be, like, you know, everything's connected right in there, that like pad. I can just feel something pushing down. It's like dropped. It's just different than it ever has been in my entire life. And so I'm like, it just feels uncomfortable. Like, I really don't want to stand on it. It's just creepy.
Have you thought about going to the doctor and getting an x-ray?
Totally. And that's, I wrote in my article, I was like, I really hope that I find out it was broken so I can be a badass.
That was one of my favorite lines. You're like, and secretly I'm kind of hoping that they say it was broken so I can say I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail on a broken
maybe
foot.
it's a bone spur, or I don't know. I'm not a medical professional, but I do know it's different.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of things are different.
Yeah.
How about your mental state? Is that different?
In what sense? Because yes, but I think
cheated a little bit because Ryan and I were talking, and on your blog.
If you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
But waking up in your bed and not realizing where you're at, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, I guess from transitioning back, how's your mental state?
So interesting. It was a concern of mine the whole entire time. In fact, it was a concern for me and Jessica because, you know, she's probably wondering, this guy just got done hiking 5 months. You know, is he gonna think our life back here is an adventure? And I'm like, that's a very valid concern. Yeah. I mean, I've never done anything like this. Am I gonna get the bug? Am I gonna, you know? And then not only that, but like, I'm moving every day, and I'm traveling, and I'm having these moments and things like that, and I was wondering how I would return and wonder if I like get antsy, you know, like, oh, I need to go and do this thing, right? I think had my trail ended prematurely and abruptly with either an injury or something like that, where it was like one day I'm on the trail, the next day I'm off the trail and I'm not in Canada, I think that would have been different. But when you hike so many miles a day and you kind of have this like built-in itinerary of like, you know, when I hit the Oregon border, Oregon-Washington border, that was another milestone. And I'm like, cool, I have 507 miles, I think, to go. I can now begin, and as you make your way north, you kind of start kind of dropping some bags around, you know, and you're like, cool, I need to start thinking about what this looks like when I get home. I can start thinking about getting back into work. What does life look like? And start getting excited. And then Jess and I can start talking about what do you want to do about the wedding and blah, 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 blah.
So
and
you
all
have
this
time to mentally prepare yourself.
Yeah, and you have all day.
Yeah.
I think I hiked, I think we called it hiking days. I did Washington in like 22 days.
Which seems like not a lot.
It's not very much. It's not very many days. In fact,
how many miles is it?
It's 507. So I was doing...
I think he worded it wrong. It seems like to make it through Washington in only 22 days by foot.
Yeah.
That seems like you're blazing.
Yeah, it was really fast.
A lot of miles per day.
And it was unexpected. I thought I was going to be able to do like... I heard Washington was... It is. It's very up and down, and it's challenging. So I expected to do like 20s through Washington. And then we did the first couple days, and I'm like, well, I can do... I'm doing 25, 23... And then I did my biggest day in Washington. And I did my first 30 in Washington, and I did another day of 31. So, yeah, I blazed through it pretty quickly. And I probably could have done it faster, but the hiking days, you know, when you start doing 30-mile days, like, it's just not very fun. Like, you're wounded.
Yeah. And then to get up and do another one.
Yeah, to get up and do it another time is, you know... But, I mean, 25, I found like 25 miles a day was perfect for my body. I had energy in camp. I had energy the next morning. But to answer your question about mental state, I feel great. Like, I had 500 miles through Washington to think about coming home. And when I got to the border and I saw Jessica at the trailhead, I was like, we're done. Like, I'm ready. And so we drove home. And I've been home since we'll call it the 3rd. I think I came home, we came home the 3rd of September. Do I miss the trail? Absolutely I miss the trail. Do I but it's like I miss an old friend or I miss a moment in life. I look at it fondly and I romance it almost in my head. I'm like, oh man, that was such an awesome experience. But I want a new adventure. And that chapter's closed for the time being. And like, yeah, I wake up in bed sometimes and I'll lay at the ceiling. And I'm like, wow, like a month ago I was looking through my bug net at the stars, waking up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom under a starry sky, having morning walks, listening to music all by myself in the, and you're like, but I have this beautiful girl sitting next to me and I'm going to coffee and I'm seeing people and it's like, cool.
So do you feel that, the way you describe that, it's like, do you have a new appreciation? Are you excited when you wake up and you get to go see your friends? And
Totally, yeah. I mean, yeah, I would say so. That's a good question. If it's a new appreciation or it's a refreshed appreciation.
Because being homesick is good.
It's
people,
wonderful, yeah.
I think, right?
Yep.
And
dealt a lot with it. Yeah.
well, I get homesick on like
yeah.
a week-long vacation in
Yep.
Hawaii or something, not 6 months hiking a trail.
Yeah. We were talking about it before we started, and we can touch on it, but homesickness is a real thing, and I was homesick on a regular basis. I mean, I think there's probably people out there that don't get homesick, but...
So what were the symptoms or what were the effects that homesickness had on you?
Wanting to quit. I mean, what Ryan and I were talking about before we started, when I did the podcast here, I was home for 2.5 weeks. So it was like cut cold turkey, come home, have an amazing couple-week vacation, and then go back down to where I left off, was Fish Lake in Oregon, 2 days south of Crater Lake. Well, talk about a perfect storm. My body was hadn't been hiking for over 2 weeks. So pains from that, knee pains, my knee started flaring up again. I just came off an amazing time with Jess, and I didn't have her anymore. I was with my hiking partner, who is not her, and he's a great friend of mine, but he's not her, right? Yeah. And so we're back into the groove of things again, and I started having these thoughts of like, I'm just blindly walking through the forest or walking over these mountains. I'm not finding enjoyment, and not only that, but like there is zero cell coverage in Southern Oregon in the mountains on the PCT. I mean, I have AT&T. Maybe you might have something on Verizon, but like there was nothing over every ridge. And so I went cold turkey from her, and she went cold turkey from me. And
can I add something?
Yeah.
I actually texted Jess and I was like, dude, is he okay?
Yeah.
He hasn't posted. And she goes, I don't know. I haven't spoken with him either. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah. And all she has is that I had that GPS tracker, and she just had to refresh the page to make sure that I was moving. And so I'm dealing with all those things of like, I can't call her. Dude, it was bad. It was really bad. It was so bad that 2 days later when we got to Crater Lake, Mazama Village, I'm hiking through the mountains. I was telling Ryan, I'm like, I'm looking, 1 mile took forever. Fast forward to the end of the trail, 1 hour was like, bing, blink of an eye. I'm like, whoa, it's already been an hour? Time for some Oreos, But like that 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. And I'm constantly, oh shoot, I've only gone a half a mile. Are you kidding me? I'm in Southern Oregon. So I start playing mind games with me, and nothing's working. Nothing is working.
So you were trying. You realized that your mind was going in
the
wrong
bad
direction, and you were
absolutely.
trying to course correct.
And I can't reach out to my lifeline.
Yeah.
To be like, I need to hear your voice to keep going. So get to Crater Lake, and my knee's hurting. And what happens when you're homesick or start feeling all those things? The world's crashing down. You start looking for valid reasons to go home. Anything. And trying to put it on something else instead of yourself, right? So I was not in a good mental state. Jose and I decided to take, we got to Mazama Village, and I was like, we got to take a 0 day. I was like, I need to think. Because it was putting a knot in my stomach.
0 days where you just don't
move.
0 miles.
You just 0 miles, you don't do anything. I had the biggest knot in my entire stomach, like in my entire life in my stomach. The way, I mean, thinking about eating lunch the next day on the trail made me sick. I tried looking at, usually I could get my juices flowing by looking at the map, looking at the terrain, looking at, kind of planning ahead, like visualizing, using visualization. What does it feel like to move? What does it feel like to hike? Nothing.
So you were trying hard.
Nothing is working. So I say, bro, we got to do 0 day. I got to think. I'm like going on walks, 100-yard stairs. People are making phone calls because they got cell service. I don't. I go to the store in Mazama Village in Crater Lake National Park and call Jessica via payphone. She doesn't answer.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, oh, gosh. And he was this like dirty hiker, right? And I'm just like, out of like sheer disappointment, she doesn't answer. And she's working all day. Like and this random phone number calls her, right? Like, but at this point, she's kind of trained to like, if a weird thing happens, pick up, right? So I sit there defeated in this chair by this payphone. And I'm just like, I'm done. We're done.
Tell me the phone rings.
And dude, the phone rings.
Yes.
And I look over and I'm like, what the heck? Pick up the phone. Hello? And she's like, Emory? I was like, oh my gosh, like what? And then the operator comes on, toss a quarter in, bro. And I'm like, at this point I'm just like chucking change out. I'm like, I'm giving up. I'm coming home. I'll be home tomorrow. But, so talked to her and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like I haven't had this. She's like, it's okay. Like, how are you doing? And so we went through it and I was like, I'm not good. So this is not good.
When was it emotional? Did you get overwhelmed with?
I'm not sure. Man, I tell you what, I have become very emotional. For some reason, like, whatever that trail did to me, like, I choke up pretty easily when I think about moments on the trail. I don't recall if I did or not. I think she would tell me, like, she could tell in the inflection of my voice that things aren't good or I'm heavy. And she would tell me that's, like, hard to hear, right? But before I started the trail, she's like, what do you need from me? I was like, I don't know, but I know there's going to be times when I call you that I just need you to, like, bail me out.
Yeah.
Emotionally, or to tell me to freaking suck it up, and this is, you chose this type conversation. So she was super loving, and I was like, I'm not good. I was like, I'm considering being done. And she's like, well, I support you no matter what. Like, you're doing a great job. Perfect, right? She's like, take some time to think about it. I mean, it was perfect phone call. No need to go into details. Imagine the perfect phone call you could have with someone that's encouraging you. That's happened, right? Excuse me. So get off the phone. I feel a little better. A little bit, but now I'm like, okay, at least I got to explain to her. I was like, I don't know, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to talk to you next, but I'll call you if something changes, right? And went through the motions of the day. I hadn't resupplied. My buddy's resupplying in the store for the upcoming stretch, and I haven't resupplied. And I tell him, I'm like, hey, dude, I think I'm going to call it tomorrow if I wake up and my knee hurts. We're done. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, again, he's like, okay. He's like, I don't want to see that. But he goes, all right.
And so if you would have called it, would he have kept going, or yeah. Okay.
Well, and the other thing is that him and I are really good with each other. Like, when he was down, I was up. And when I was up, he was down type thing. And, like, so who knows? Maybe me leaving would have ruined his trail. There's always that. So there's a lot of elements to the whole entire thing. Or maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe it would have been great for him. So he, like, that was a weight on him now, and I'm like, okay. So we make camp for the night, and throughout the night, I'm like, I wake up and move my leg around, and my knee was real tight and whatever. The next morning, I wake up, and I moved my leg around, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
It's perfect.
I couldn't feel it. And I was like, well, okay, well, I'm not on it yet, so let's not. So I get out of my tent, and I'm like, crap. Well, I don't have my backpack on, so I bet when my backpack's on, and clearly I'm trying to find an excuse. And I'm already writing articles in my head about how I'm going to explain this thing, and I'm like, how can I make something positive about this whole entire experience. And I was telling Ryan, like, I was visually seeing, like, like a football team runs through like a tunnel and they, bust out that thing,
The paper.
The paper.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's not a cheerleader in front of it, right? I felt like I was running through a tunnel and that barrier was out there and I had to run through it. And I knew if I could get through it, I'd be on the field. But that barrier, whatever it might be, was extremely solid and not letting me through. So I was visualizing being like, Emory, if you can just push through, if you can just keep going, like find some sort of a hold, like foot hold, finger hold, pinky hold, whatever it might be. Find something that you can sink something into to get you to the next leg, right? Whatever that might be. Maybe it's a mile down the road, whatever. So I had no excuse to put my backpack on, and I have no excuse. My knee doesn't hurt. Now I'm like, all right. And I didn't say anything to Jose. And I'm like, hey, buddy, I'm going to resupply. And he's like, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So I resupplied, and I was like, don't celebrate it. Let's just get going, So we get a ride to the trailhead, and that night, that day we hiked like 20 miles or so, I think. And the storm moves in, and it was the most beautiful storm you'd ever seen. There's thunder and lightning, and we're hiking. He's like, dude, when should we camp? I was like, not yet. We're good. We can get a couple more miles in. Finally, I'm like, it's time. So we pitch our tents. 15 minutes later, it just starts pouring down hail. And the sun's going down, and it looked like glitter falling from the sky. I'd never seen anything like it. I was watching these drops of hail come down from like hundreds of feet above. And all I could think about was like, I almost missed this. And by the way, I was not in a good mental state at that point either. Like I was not through the tunnel or through the barrier yet. But that was like, my knee didn't hurt. That was one little hold, I don't think I told Jess that I was leaving because I was like, if we're going to do this, I need to just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's go. My next stop will be this. And there was a couple of like road crossings down the road that I could call it. I could be like, we're done. I'll hitch into town and be done. But that storm, dude, that was the biggest grip I had.
Because you realized you could have missed it.
Totally.
So yeah, so one of your blogs talks about it, and it's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Because you're like, how powerful of a moment that was for you. I
mean, giving up too early is the worst thing you could do. I mean, think about how many hunts you've been on, or whatever it might be, or things could turn around in a matter of a moment.
Seconds.
Seconds. And so I was like, and it still took me, it took me a few days. It was not over. It was just beginning. But I was pushing through, and I was still visualizing that barrier. And when I got to the next stop, which was a few days up the road, I was like, I'm back.
Do you think that maybe either consciously or subconsciously that's why a lot of people do these through hikes? Is so that they put themselves in a situation physically and mentally that they're going to have to overcome?
I think some people do. I mean, that was part of my reason. I was like, I feel like I'm pretty strong mentally to get through some things, and I needed it. But I still, clearly, I mentioned it in one of my articles. I was like, each mountain was like, I felt like I was Highlander, I was lopping off immortals' heads, and I was like, I was envisioning these mountains as like, every time I climbed a mountain, the lightning would strike, and I'm like, heck yeah, my legs got bigger and my endurance got better, and I was like, these mountains don't have jack on me, And so the same thing goes with like these mental battles. Every mental battle, your endurance goes up, and then some battles are good, some battles are bad, but like every mental challenge that came about, whether it was physical, emotional, or whatever it might be, I felt like I was a Highlander, I was like lopping off immortals' heads with these emotional struggles and these mental challenges, and every time I won, I would get stronger.
So for the people that aren't total nerds like Emory and me, do you know the Highlander movie?
Yeah.
Where they're immortal, and if one immortal chops off the head of another immortal, they gain all their strength.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
Strength,
awesome
knowledge,
movie.
yeah.
Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're Sean Connery.
So, I mean, that's kind of how I looked at a lot of things, and I'm like, cool, I'm getting stronger. And so, to answer your question, I think subconsciously or consciously, people are looking for that. And, dude, sometimes you won't win. The aim is to get better and practice it. Challenge yourself mentally and physically. I think the reason why I'll get chucked up about moments on the PC, like I'd walk through the forest and it would just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I'm like, I'm like, because you start reflecting on the like things you've just gone through and where you're at, and you're like, whoa, this is super intense.
Do you think those 2 weeks made it worse? When the 2 week break you had?
I think the 2 week break was 100% part of my journey and was supposed to happen. I believe
Yeah,
that.
it's probably a lot of good and bad.
It's incredible, but it was incredibly hard. I would never give up anything that happened on that trail. Did I hike through the Sierras? Nope. I can always go back but the thing is, like, from start to finish, I love how my trail turned out. I would never trade it for the world. Every single moment. That 2.5 weeks back home was awesome and awful at the same time because I had to leave it. But at the same time, I pushed through a gigantic barrier, and I was down at the worst moment of my entire trail. I was looking at bus schedules to see how I could get out of there, knowing that I was visualizing leaving.
Yeah.
And then I was like, it's almost like you have to have that out-of-body experience. You're like, I know what you're saying to yourself, Emory, but like, you're fine. Nothing's going to change. Jess is fine. Everything's good. She's having a hard time, but like, so are you. And you wanted this. You signed up for this. Come out of your body for a second and like, don't listen to those negative thoughts. And maybe you do have more negative thoughts than you have positive thoughts. Come out of your brain for a second and like, identify those negative thoughts and be like, okay. So one of the things that helped me through that time was I was like, okay, my brain's shot. We're done. Emotionally, I am over with. But what I have is physical acts. So what does that look like? Well, I'm a routine guy. I do the same thing every single time. I do, for the most part, the same thing every single day. And it served me well in my life because when I'm down at my worst or physically or mentally drained, or on the trail, we'll say all of the above, there's elements, there's all those things, I don't even have to think about making camp. I don't have to think about eating. I don't have to think about the miles. I don't have to think about anything. I can literally just do it because my body has been doing it for so long and I'm in a repetition, you know? And so what I did was I was like, cool, I know what hiking looks like. Do that. And pretty soon the repetition's like, cool, it's familiar. Repetition's very familiar. It's comforting. Okay, cool. I know what this feels like. And then slowly but surely you start coming out of it. And that's how it worked for me.
So how long would you say from that day where the hail day until you got to a point where you were at the beginning of the of our podcast when Washington started to blaze by, and you were in that positive mindset?
Yeah, I would say, it took me a good week to get out of that. And I would say by the time I was halfway through Oregon, which, by the time I got to the Sisters area, let's just put it this way. Oregon is extremely flat and incredible. Like, it sounds weird, but it's really flat and it's beautiful. So it's not really it's not as physically challenging as what you would think it would be. However, there is a hill in the Sisters Wilderness that I describe as, it's like for half a mile or a quarter mile, whatever it might be, it doesn't even matter. It is like walking up a sand dune full of marbles. And I'm giggling to myself the entire time because Jose is behind me getting all worked up, right? He's just pissed off.
Because you're kicking rocks down at him?
No, because it hurts. The whole hill just hurts. And he's like, don't film me. Don't, because I'd always pull my camera out because he's very, animated character. And he's like, don't you dare film me. He's like, if you put that phone, I'm going to punch you in the face, that type of stuff. And we just climbed this, like, we're looking at the topo map or the elevation again. We're like, we got to climb this hill. And it was like a half a mile hill. And then I think it was a half a mile of this really long hill that kicked our butts. And then we go around the corner and we're like, okay, that hill's done with. And I look at the topo map again and I'm like, we're not done, bro. And but like, literally like what, a week earlier, a week and a half earlier, those hills felt like Everest, and my mental state was terrible. But now fast forward, I'm going up this hill that was the worst hill I've ever hiked, ever. I would never wish that hill on anybody. And you can see the top, but it just goes, it zigzags back and forth on like marble sand dunes, what it felt like. And we go around the corner and I'm like, there it is. It goes up this gut and you're just like, and I'm just like, laughing. All I can do is laugh. It was ridiculous. I'm exhausted. I'm stumbling around. I mean, you get that like drunk feel, because you're like, you're so exhausted and you're just like, this is so stupid. What am I doing? And I just start laughing. I mean, that was a major turning point. That hill was a major that hill was a turning point in that I specifically remember thinking, I am back. Awesome. Officially. And then tore through Washington.
All right, I got two questions.
Yeah.
First one, coming into Bridge of the Gods, you're kind of your hometown.
Yeah. There was no parade.
And then so talk about Bridge of the Gods and kind of what that meant to you and symbolized, and then talk about once you hit the sign that says you've reached Canada. But now Jess is still a few miles away.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Bridge of the Gods. I'd thought about this moment for years. Before I even committed to the trail, I just romanticized the idea of hiking from Mexico and then showing up. I drive by it every day to and from work. I see these hikers and I pick them up from time to time and I'm like, I'm so jealous. And so in my head, here's what's funny about what we do with our brains. In my head, I had this like vision of what I wanted it to look like. Turns out it did not happen that way. First of all, there was the forest fire. There was a Indian Creek fire that was barely moving around, but they closed Eagle Creek, Eagle Creek is the alternate, right? But the PCT goes around another corner, but most people take the Eagle Creek alternate because it's absolutely beautiful. So couldn't do Eagle Creek, no waterfalls, no nothing. That's weird. Okay, there's one, oddity. That didn't happen the way, because I imagined coming out of the Eagle Creek trailhead and seeing Jessica and all that number. So that didn't happen. And then for some reason, I told Jess, I was like, hey, come pick us up in the morning. We're going to camp a couple miles out from the trailhead. That was ridiculous. Why would I stop 2 miles from the trailhead? What, so I could come down and like Julius Caesar and be like, hey, honey, let's go get breakfast. So I'm talking to Jose, and Jose's, and not only that, but every time we're passing a hiker going the opposite direction, they're like, free beers at this place, free beers at that place, you can enjoy the food. And Jose's just looking at me like, bro.
We're not stopping.
Yeah.
But he's like, I'll stop if you want. And that was just the game we played with each other, because he's like, he wanted to make it special for me and Jessica, right? And I'm sitting there, and at the beginning of the day, I'm like, that might not be a good idea, but we're going to do it anyhow. And then I'm texting Jess throughout the day, and I'm like, what are you doing tonight? And she was going to go to a concert in Edgefield. And then she's right down the road. I'm like, we would have done, instead of like a 23-mile day, we would have been like 25 plus that day, right? But you'll walk extra miles just to get a beer and a burger, right?
Yeah.
So she wasn't going to be able to pick us up till like 11 o'clock at night after the concert got over. We were going to be there for dinner. So I was like, we'll just hang out in North Bonneville, or not North Bonneville, whatever town is.
More like Thunder Mountain Brewery.
Yeah, right. Thunder Mountain Brewery. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bridge of the Gods. And so, just get in town, go to the brewery, have some beer and have some pizza, hang out, go get some ice cream, like carb up, and then we sat there on the side of the street while Jessica drove there with her dad, picked us up on the side of the road, and we're just like sitting there. So like this big entrance into Bridge of the Gods. At one point we did walk down, and I walked across the bridge halfway across because I was like, I got to do that, right?
Yeah.
And I stood, I was like, I wanted to be like, we're done. we're done with Oregon, right? But it was so not epic. It was not what I wanted it to be or envisioned it to be, but it was exactly what it needed to be. And it was awesome. And we did a 0 day. So I had 2 nights with Jess. And then I was like, we can't repeat what happened in
The Bridge of the Gods.
a month ago. I was like, we just can't repeat that. So I'm going to need to go.
Yeah.
Or it's not going to be good. So rip the Band-Aid off, and the sooner I leave, the sooner I come back. She met up with us. She actually resupplied us a few days later up in Trout Lake, and that was awesome. And for her, apparently that was the worst goodbye on the trail.
Other than previously to leaving
Yeah.
you on the side of a road in California.
No, even worse than those, apparently. That was crazy. And for me, I was like, dude, I'll see you in like a few weeks. And for her, it was like, I can't do, like, I don't know if I'm putting words in her mouth, but like, it was almost like, I can't keep doing this. Like, this is terrible, right?
Yeah.
So it's just you go into the unknowns. You see your special someone walk off into the mountains. Again. Yeah. So, and then so that was Bridge of the Gods. And then Canada. So the PCT Terminus is 8 miles from the nearest trailhead in Canada. So you have to hike, once you reach the terminus, you still have 8 miles of hiking.
All
8
right.
miles.
I'm going to do a quick
When you
screen capture
reach what
here.
you said, the terminus?
Yeah, so that monument that you're seeing on the webpage, that's the northern terminus of the PCT. 8 miles from Manning Park, BC, which is what you hike into.
So officially here you're done, but you
You're
still
done.
have to hike to get to your
Yeah.
takeout.
Yep. And so Jess and I coordinated. I was like, look, I don't know. I was in Winthrop, Washington. I'm like, it's going to take me about 3 days to get there. I was like, how about this? I'll guarantee you I won't come out of the trailhead before 1 o'clock. So I need to time it just right. And at this point, I'm pretty good at timing things. Jose ended up going home early, so I'm solo. So
Yeah, we got to talk about
Yep.
that a little bit too.
So I was able to control my time a little bit, even more dialed in. I could do more or less miles and not have to worry about someone else, which that's just a thing, you know. And there's this thing in the back of my head. I'm like, I bet this chick's gonna try and hike in. She has no idea where she's going though. Like, and I can't really describe it, and I can't help her get there. And I don't know what the trail's like. I don't know if there's turns and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, what? Could you imagine if she tried hiking in and then she takes the wrong turn
Gets
and
lost.
and then
You guys miss each
and then we
other?
miss each other, and I'm like at the trailhead and she's at the terminus and she doesn't know what time I'm going to get there. I ended up getting to terminus around 9:45 in the morning. I hiked 13 miles that morning. I think I hiked 13 miles that morning. Yeah, like 13, and then I had another 8. So again, you reach the terminus. I've thought about that moment, what that would be like, and that's weird. It's like you visualize these things and then they're different, but they're
Yeah.
just as beautiful as they're like almost more special because they're not how you envisioned it.
Yeah.
And so I get to the terminus and Jose's not there. Didn't think that would happen.
You're all by yourself. Well, there was another hiker.
There was
correct?
other hikers. Like you kind of start filtering in, and people are there, and you hear voices, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, it's right around the corner!" And you start getting weird. What's it look like? And then, bing, there it is. And then, everyone's like, they clap for you. They like cheer you on or whatever, and you're like, "Bam, touch it. You're good. Take a picture." And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "What am I supposed to do?" Well, I eat some Oreos because I still have 8 more miles to hike, right? And I'm like, drink some caffeine, drink some electrolytes, sit down. And a lot of the people, you end up either going on to Canada, or if you don't have your permit to go through Canada, you have to hike back 30 miles to Hart's Pass to catch a ride into town.
What do you mean permit? You have to have a special permit?
Yeah, it's like, because you're not crossing into border crossing. You apply
I
to get into Canada, and then they send you a permit, and you carry that with you into Canada, and you're legal.
Gotcha.
Right?
And you had the
I
permit.
had the permit, yeah. And Jose actually didn't have the permit, which is part of the reason why he didn't come. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, she's not here, but I guarantee that girl probably showed up at the trailhead at like 5 a.m. in the morning just to be there, And I'm like, so I think I probably stayed there 15, 20 minutes tops and hugged a couple guys and was like, see you later, dude. I got a girl to see.
The real finish line.
Yeah, I was like, ahead. I still get 8 miles, and like, go get it, dude. I'm like, all right. Took off, and I wouldn't say that it was the longest 8 miles, but it was definitely a long 8 miles. And the last hour was like, and every group, as you get closer, you start seeing day hikers, and you're like, oh, is that her? Oh, would she hike in? And then I'm dude, my timing was, not to float my own boat here, but like, I got pretty good at timing. I was going to reach that trailhead at 1300 at 1 o'clock. I was going to hit it. And because I didn't want to look like an idiot. Like, I took one break in those 8 miles. That's all I could stand. And I forced myself to do it because because I was a hiker, right? In hiking mode, I was like, okay, I got to do this. I got to take care of my body. So with a half a mile left, that's 10 minutes of hiking. I'm blazing through. I'm not bumping into her, but I'm wondering if these people have seen her at the trailhead. I come around the corner, dude, and like, there she is. And we were all alone.
Trailhead?
No, she hiked in a half a mile. She couldn't take it anymore.
Boom. Screen capture.
Yeah, and my eyes are puffy because, dude, like, there she is. There's the moment. And, dude, we just, like, hugged and sat there in peace. And, it was, like, perfect. Like, I was all alone. We were all alone in the forest. No one was around. And there's nothing to say. There's just nothing to say.
Yeah.
It's just like, I was just totally thanks. Like, let's go home. So she walked out with me, and we went to Vancouver, BC that night. No plans. And got a hotel, spent the night, came home the next day. And, I couldn't have asked for a better cherry on top,
Well, and you finished.
Yeah.
Which, until you and I met, I didn't know much about the Pacific Crest Trail, but I've talked to a lot of people that don't finish.
Yeah, tons of people don't.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people would, I didn't do the 2,650 miles. I did right around 2,000. Give or take, and I say right around because the trail changes every single year. They'll put new trail on, and like, you just never know. I wasn't like sitting there with my GPS on every single day, So it was roughly about 2,000 miles. And I wrote in one of my blogs, like, there is like 600 miles left of trail for me to hike. I know that.
That's the John Muir section?
There's the Sierra Trail, the Sierra Range, and there's a couple spots in Northern California that I had to go around. And so I'm fine with that. Like, I love the trail. I love how my trail worked out. And I told Jose when he was thinking about taking off, I was like, bro, the trail doesn't start and stop at the Terminus. I was like, the trail starts and stops where you decide and whatever you got from it. And to me, like I said in one of my posts, I'm like, if my pride is hidden in those mountains in the Sierra somewhere, I don't want to see them.
Yeah.
So I'll do them one day, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe I like the fact that I didn't do them. Mm-hmm. It's like humbling, Like, hey, don't put your pride in check. You didn't do the whole entire thing.
That.
I think 2,000 miles is pretty good.
I think it's amazing.
Well, and Tom, who was just on the way out, he kind of said expectations can lead to failure.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So before and after doing this, do you feel that you're at better terms with that statement?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
That applying expectations to things doesn't mean make or break the result, right?
Yeah. Well, because my expectations were to hike every inch of the trail and to be a thru-hiker and to be, because I guess, to be considered, to have thru-hikes, you have to hike it within
the trail.
Yeah, you have to hike it within a certain period of time. I think like a year or something like that. And so these people, these thru-hikers, they get really wrapped around the horn, and that's awesome. That's their trail. That's important to them, and they want this like badge of honor, and they want this like pin and this award thing because the PCGA sends something out to you. And I'm like, feel free not to call me a thru-hiker.
Yeah.
I don't care. But now before the trail, I was like, I want to be a thru-hiker. That's what I want to be. I want to you can never take that away from me. Now I'm like, have it, dude.
Well, it almost seems like your prize and your pen is your mindset and your mental attitude now.
Yeah, absolutely. I learned so much. I packed a lot of experiences and moments and lessons learned, and I mean, into 5 months and 2,000 miles that I wouldn't trade for the entire world. I would never, if you said, well, I'll trade you that for those 600 miles, I'd tell you to stuff it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And to be honest, I have no desire to do it. Especially, but hearing you say that does make me wonder, man, what can I do to put myself in such a mental struggle that where it changes my mindset of what I expect out of whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right.
And dude, that's the thing, is that I think there's like, I know a buddy of mine wants to ride the from Atlantic to Pacific on his bicycle, right? He's like, I know that's not the PCT, but I was like, bull crap, man. Don't like.
Don't
it's
shortchange yourself.
Don't
I was
compare
like,
the two.
and just because you haven't done it doesn't mean that you should shortchange yourself. You know, I'm like, it's the same thing. So here's the beautiful thing, because you've committed to something that is so ridiculously daunting. And one of the things that I've really come to enjoy about this whole PCT idea is there's so many positive things that come out of this. And I didn't know this going into it. I mentally committed to a 2,600 mile journey from Mexico to Canada. I committed to that. I made a plan, and it wasn't and people section hike it, and they hike a few miles at a time, and that's great. That's cool. Everyone needs to do their own things. Not everyone can take 6 months off to hike, to have that big of a commitment, right? However, the benefit that I got from doing so is that when I woke up in my tent on day 2 with blisters on my feet and the idea that Canada, that I'm laying on ground that's 15 miles from Mexico, and I can't even fathom being 15 miles from Canada.
Yeah, you're like a 0.5% done with the hike.
Yeah, dude, I mean, like, try finding that spot on the map. Like, it's barely even there, like, and I'm like, this is impossible. I don't see, but is it impossible? Because people do it. And I'm like, how are they doing it? And all of a sudden, right then, I was like, I've got to figure this thing out. I can't even think about Canada. I can't even think about Oregon. I can't think about the Sierra Range. I can't think about a 100-mile marker. I got to think about
1 foot in front
one
of the
foot
other.
in front of the other, and like make tiny little goals, and like eat an elephant one bite at a time, that type scenario, whatever analogy you want to use. But it's true, because I'm like, how many people quit 20 miles in? They're like, no thank you. That hurt.
Yeah.
We're done. And then 100 miles in, gears just flying off,
Well, that show we watch, Alone.
Oh yeah.
I mean, those
awesome.
guys,
Awesome
they
show.
show all their, their life's work of all their outdoors preparation, and then they get dropped off
And they're like, we're done.
on the BZ
And
Islands.
they quit today.
Yep.
And they literally quit like within 4 hours of being there, and I can't judge because I've never been
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
And
position.
as I'm sitting on the couch with my beer and my slice of pizza, I'm
You're like,
criticizing
oh, what
these
a
people.
puss.
And I'm like, I can't even comprehend quitting on the first day. But after you just described what you did, I get it. Because they get there and they said, I underestimated this challenge, and
We're done.
I'm not going to do it.
Yep.
So it wasn't that they can't or they got scared or whatever, but they said this challenge isn't up for me. That's why people quit on day one, right? Versus the people that are quitting 3 weeks
Yep.
in.
And they told us before we started, they're like, if you can get through the first couple weeks, you're not home free, but you're 2 weeks in and you're better off. And so we're like, 2 weeks.
Well, it's like building a habit.
Yeah, and that's what it is, and the routine thing. And the guys were busting my chops about like always setting up my tent because they're like cowboy camping. They're like, what, are you afraid to cowboy camp? I'm like, no, bro. I'm building myself a routine. That's what I'm doing. I don't want to think about this anymore. I want to have everything bam, 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 bam. And then, dude, it took me from the time I woke up, without even trying, time I woke up to having coffee and some food in my stomach and down the trail, 30 minutes in the morning.
That's
done.
impressive.
Yeah. And so I don't have to think about it. And I didn't think about it. My butt, and Jose just would, he's like, I hate it when you back up so fast. He's like, what are we in a race? You know, and I'm like, I mean,
It's my
kind
hike,
of,
man.
maybe.
It's my hike, yeah. So here's what I'm excited to hear about. Have you been back to work?
I start Monday. So no.
We almost got to do a follow-up to a follow-up.
I know, right?
Yeah, that honestly, that was my question. I was going to be like, how is it sitting in an office going, what have I done with my life now?
Do you think that you're going to walk in and all the lights are going to be off and then they're going to go, surprise, you made it?
No, I'm sure that I'll just, well, what's great about this, so this company I work for, I mean, they've been so incredibly supportive. Like the CEO has read my blog once or twice, I know. Number of folks have reached out to me. The company's been really, people I haven't met probably in the company yet. They've followed my blog and been like, dude, we're really excited. Like they want to do like a brown bag lunch to kind of do this kind of a round robin type deal. Because, dude, you don't meet a thru-hiker every single day, and even if you do, everyone's experience is different. So they want to. I was like, dude, I'll answer any question you want. We can talk about all kinds of different things. So we're probably going to do something like that. But yeah, going back to work I'm excited. But I had this realization the other day. I think I was telling Jess. I am looking forward to going back to work and getting back into the grind of things and bringing in a paycheck and that kind of stuff again, right? That's wonderful. Here's what I'm mourning, if you will. I'm mourning the loss of a friend in the PCT almost, because you learn, you become super connected with this thing that it's like single track trail that goes from Mexico to Canada. So by going back to work, it is the ending of a chapter.
It's officially done.
It's officially done. And it's not only that, but my company gave me the gift of not worrying about figuring out what I'm going to do when I get back, ensuring that I have a job when I come back, welcoming me back. So for 6 months, I haven't even thought about work for the most part. I've actually been free of that thought. And so for 6 months, I've been able to, for the first time in my life, push my own personal agenda, free from guilt and a number of things. That doesn't happen very often, I don't think. And so I kind of have this feeling of loss, of oh, I have to push someone else's agenda and push it well instead of my own. That's weird. Because my life consisted of waking up, eating, walking, drinking, and pizza from time to time.
On your terms?
On my terms and when I wanted. And I could hike 25 miles. I could hike 31. I could hike 19. I could hike 14. I could quit. I could not quit. I could, I could do a number of things. And I could write about this thing. And no one could tell me what to do at 3 miles an hour except for Mother Nature. And even then,
yeah,
I can kind of get through some of that stuff, so, yeah, it's strange.
So how long before you are going to be in a position where you have to have another challenge like this?
That's a good question. I have, Jessica's great. I tell you what, my girl, she says, if you want to do another one, it's never no.
Wow.
But I was like, one of the reasons why I wanted to quit in Crater Lake is because I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is one of the reasons, this is too good to be experiencing by myself. And I know Jose was there and I know these people were there, but I'm like, look, man, Bubbles lives in Vegas and we might talk from time to time. We're going to have this connection for the rest of our lives. We will always have that connection, but it's like going to combat with someone or going to work with somebody. You have that tribe that you've built, and Jess didn't get to experience that rain cloud and that mountain or that view of that marble-built hill.
I feel that every year when I'm hunting.
Yeah, who do you share it with?
Sometimes Rachel comes out for a day or two.
And you're like, do you remember that?
And hikes and whatnot, just to be out there, and she brings the camera.
Yep.
Because it sucks to experience that stuff alone in a way.
Yeah, and that was one of my struggles is I'm like, I don't want to do this alone anymore. I don't want to do this without someone that I truly care about 100%. And maybe it's not her. Maybe it's a good friend. Maybe it's a close friend that, that has known me. But like, I told Jess, I was like, I will not do another one unless you're right there next to me.
I want to call dibs on any section of the Sierras.
Yeah, the JMT.
You
John
got
Muir
it.
Trail.
If you like,
Heck yeah, dude.
me, you, Rach, Jess.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I want to do it. Like I told him, like when I go back to the Sierras, you might as well just do the JMT because it's beautiful and it's like 200 miles. And
dude,
I know that's daunting, but it's not when you say I'm hiking every day. That's it. Like you can do it.
it would be
Epic.
It would be really
It
awesome.
really would be. Yeah. So I mean, Cody's question about how long is it going to take before I have to
Challenge yourself.
challenge myself again? I don't know. I mean, I have some personal challenges coming up with like internal personal challenges, like going out on a limb with changing the format of my website into, I guess, like a podcast format. So that's an adventure.
You heard it, people.
Yeah, right. You've heard it here first.
Byland podcast.
The Byland podcast. So I'm going to go out on a limb there. You guys were a big influence in being like, well, shoot, like that was fun. We can do that. We can talk about things. So that's an adventure. I do have a dream. I told Jess, I was like, the only dream that's on my docket right now is I'm a huge Lewis and Clark fanatic, and I would love to retrace their journey on the water, over the mountains, and down the rivers, like.
That'd be awesome.
I'm like, that would be super cool. Do I have the feeling of wanting a thru-hike? I will always welcome a thru-hike, but I will not welcome it if it's not with someone that I love dearly, because it's just too good.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to walk any of those hills ever again. But if Jessica wakes up next to me one morning and is like, I want to do the PCT, I'd be like, pack your bags. I'll be there.
Well, and there's a lot of what you said last time and this time that you can apply to any situation in your life for people that don't thru hike, and you can apply almost everything you're saying to business, right? And that's something I know Ryan's really good at, is as he experiences things in life, doing it with people he cares about in his family. Have you started your podcast? Have you released the first podcast?
No, so the podcast should be episodes. The way I'm going to do it is have like 3 or 4 episodes in the bank to launch at the same time, so that people can like kind of roll through a number of them and find out if they like it or not. And then after that, it'll be, my hope is regularly, but for me, it's not up and going yet, but it should be in the next, I would say within 2 weeks, it'll be up on iTunes and good to go, with 3 to 4 episodes. And so the whole idea, when I started Byland, the website, you had to start somewhere. And so all I wanted was to help people have help educate people, do whatever I could to help someone have a better time backpacking. And it is backpacking centric, but that doesn't mean it's hunting centric. It doesn't mean that it's non-hunting centric. It doesn't mean that that means I can't talk about fishing or duck hunting or day hiking or whatever it might be. But the idea here is like, I realized that I had a number of people. The reason why I'm going to a podcast format is I had so many people reach out and be like, I don't know you, but I've really enjoyed reading your journey. And they're like, I'm kind of sad that you're done.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm kind of sad that I'm done too, and I can't share this with you anymore, dude.
I was way sad when I kind of read the last of the blogs. I was like, damn it, his journey is over.
Yeah,
our journey is over.
Right? And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to write about? Go back to talking about gear that I'm interested in, or like a random trip that I take during the summer? Because I'm like, I totally can write about that stuff. But I'm like, I'm not the adventure guy. Like, I did go on an adventure, but I actually am more interested in your adventures and getting you going into the backcountry or hunting or hiking, or like getting over that hump of like, what's your barrier to entry? Is it lack of knowledge? Is it lack of gear? Is it lack of confidence? What is it? And let me help you get over that. And sure, sometimes I might be commentary, like it might be my commentary, but here's the thing, like there's millions of people out there that go into the wilderness on a regular basis. I want to talk to those people and be like, dude, what do you do differently than what I do? And I just want to continue to learn. If I'm learning, then you're learning, and let's talk about these things. So I have a number of awesome people lined up to go from around the industry already that they've been incredibly gracious to give me their time for a podcast that essentially does not exist, and that I'm not a podcaster.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even consider myself a writer, but I can write, and I've done it, so I'm like, I'm really stoked. I think it's turning out really well so far. But the point here is the entire podcast will be centric, like experience based. So the hope is that by the end of every episode, you can take something away from what was spoken of, whether it's like, oh, I want to try that company's widget, or I want to, I should try that mental technique or that physical techniques, or, so that's what it is. Like, and it could be for experts. I'm hopefully bringing on like beginners, because I think beginners can be valuable and be like, dude, this is what I really struggled with. Oh,
Sure,
shoot.
these are my fears.
These are my fears. Animals.
Yeah.
I mean, people are terrified of what goes bump in the night. By the end of my trail, like, people were hanging food bags and all that kind of stuff, and maybe I'm stupid, and probably so, but I was just taught, they're like, you gonna hang your food bag? And I'm like, no, I'm gonna put it in my tent. Like, well, there's bears, and I'm like, yeah. I'm like, true, totally true. I haven't had a problem yet, though. I had one animal get in my tent, and that was a mouse towards the end of the trip. So I'm like, I want to find out what other people do and how they do it. So that's the idea behind the podcast, and I think it's just too good to pass up, So
I'm gonna go screen capture here.
Yeah,
we got a new logo.
oh yeah, that's a new logo. I did
so
that.
Sweet.
So what's funny about that logo is I really have not. So that image right there was an idea that I had a couple years ago. Well, I went on this solo deer hunt, and it was the first time I harvested a buck solo, and it was very emotional. Like, it was a very mental struggle. It was like, I wrote an article about it, like, just keep hunting, and that was about my internal battle with, like, my gun misfired on a really nice blacktail.
Was it a muzzleloader?
Nope, it was a brand new gun, and
Did it misfire?
it just didn't go off. It was the firing pin was just barely kissing the cap, and it was like snow on the ground, freezing cold, and he comes out of nowhere, right? Like we said, like I was literally getting up to warm up because I was like, I can't sit here anymore. I'm freezing. Get up, and this big bodied buck just walks right out of the trees at 40 yards away, and I'm like, nice. I shot that thing 9 times without one bullet going off. And I put my gun down at one point. I'm like, cool, man. You won. But I got to watch him. I got to sit there like 30 yards away while this buck is just standing there in this like epic snowfield. And I'm like, that's pretty awesome. So I had one more day in the season. And I was like, you don't see blacktails in the same spot every single. I mean, just black-tailed hunting is
Tough.
really hard.
Right.
It was during the rut. I had one more day. I just blew out this buck. He's probably not coming back. And the very next morning, I was like, just keep hunting. Like, just keep hunting. All right. Woke up the next morning, completely defeated. Probably not going to see an animal, but I'll go back. Saw the tracks from the previous day. Blah, 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 blah. Dude, within 15 minutes of shooting light, young buck it was a different buck, but he walks out at the same spot. Done. And so I look, and I'm all alone, and he drops in his tracks, clean harvest, perfect shot, and I'm like, you know that moment when you're like, what just happened? Like,
Yeah.
instinct took over, and you're like, and no one's around, no one's with me. I'm all alone. Who do I hug? Who do I talk to? Who do I celebrate this with? And I'm like, I'm just by myself, and I turn around, and the sun's coming up over this ridge, and Mount Hood has this really awesome slope to it where it's like, kind of does that.
Yeah.
And I look over, and it's like this clean line that goes up and comes right back down. And I've always thought about that image in my head because that was a very important moment for me. Because it was the first solo hunt successful that I got to celebrate by myself with that animal and experience that moment. And so I thought about doing a logo like that, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do a mountain logo. I'm just not going to do that. And then tried a number of things, and one of the artists that I had working on it did something similar to that. And I was like, okay, let's play around. And I was like, I have to do it. Like, I just have to do it. So.
Well, I love it. I love the logo.
Thanks, man.
Got the heartbeat in there?
Yeah, that's the
That's cool.
podcast beat. Yep, sine wave.
Well, I'm excited to see how this podcast works for you. I mean,
Yeah, me
it
too.
almost is like that's another challenge.
Totally, and that's
Right.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think a lot of people. I'm sure when you probably told people you were doing a podcast, they're like, "Ooh, I don't know what that means," and
Yeah.
but you in your head have an idea of what it is, and you implement it, and then you get better and better. And Jess and I recorded the first episode with Jose and recapping the PCT, and we sat there and listened to it, and I was like, it's pretty good.
Well, I've benefited a lot, and I think Ryan and I selfishly do this podcast so we can sit down with cool people and take things away and apply them to what we're doing. And the podcast more gives us a format to do that.
Yeah. You have a reason to.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to see how you do and excited to hear your first couple ones.
I've already gotten some good responses. I posted that today, and I was like, screw it, I'm just going to tell people. So in a couple of weeks, it'll be up and live, and people are like, oh, where are you at on iTunes? I'm like, I'm not up yet. Like, just stay tuned. Like, I want to make sure you have a couple episodes you can download.
Well, if you need any advice from two absolute rookies,
Yeah,
we're
dude.
always here for
You know
Rookie
who to
mistakes
call.
are great to know about.
Yeah. Yep. And I figured out what one of those knobs does on that board over there earlier
awesome.
when we had it turned the wrong way. But byland.com.
.co, yeah.
By_land
Oh, for the website?
for the website.
No, it's just byland.co.
Byland.co. And then I'm sure you'll be posting on your website when the podcast is ready.
There'll be if you go to the homepage, up in the top, there's a podcast tab. So it'll be podcasts and articles.
Are you going to do YouTube too or just iTunes?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I could probably do YouTube, might as well. I mean, I'm not going to do video, so it'll just be audio, but I could find a way to do it. We'll see.
Yeah. Well,
But for sure, iTunes, it'll be up on iTunes in the next couple of weeks.
perfect. Well, Emory, truly inspiring.
Dude, thanks for having me on.
And I'm glad we did a follow-up. And let's do another follow-up to hear how your podcast is going. I'm
Yeah,
really
dude.
excited to see how you transition back into work
Mm-hmm.
and see where you go in the next few years.
Heck yeah,
Because
dude.
I don't see you being stagnant.
No, and it's so funny. People at work are like, "Are you even coming back?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude. Like, no one's what? Like, I gotta make some money, dude. Like, I want to come back, and I like my job. I mean, is it my dream job? I don't know. What's a dream job?
You got a pretty cool gig.
Yeah, I got a cool gig going on. Like, I'm very fortunate. Like, I enjoy the people I work with. It's a great company and a career that I never thought I would be in. And I've been there since 2009, so I think I know what I'm talking about at this point a little bit. But you're continuing to learn as long as you continue to learn. And my company allows me to have the creative freedom to come home and do stuff like this, and then
And I think that
Seems like
that's
a good balance.
that's a big takeaway people will get from your podcast and your story and everything is how you treat your employees and what kind of lifestyle you're providing for them and the freedom you've given. And I think that just your company doing what they did and allow you to do that speaks volumes for having happy employees. And
yeah, I mean, the CEO's done a great job of
now they have a built-in motivational speaker. They don't have to.
right. I know. There you go. Come on, everybody, let's thru-hike. No, let's eat honey buns in the morning.
Yeah. Your honey bun post
Dude,
was
I thought that was
hilarious
funny.
the other day. I cracked up.
Jess sends me a text. She's like, "You're funny," and I'm like, "I think I'm pretty funny," because I ate those things every morning.
Just go check them out on Instagram by_land, BY_land.
I need to change it to dot. So the crazy thing about Instagram is like, I really need to change it to byland.co so that it matches.
Everything, yes.
But then you lose all the tags, all the hits. But it's like, oh, should I do it now before I have like?
The podcast up and running.
Yeah, I should probably do it now.
Just pull the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, it's just terrifying. No, it's not terrifying. Why is it so terrifying? It's not terrifying. And that's the thing
What's
I
your
learned.
expectation? How many followers do you have to get?
See,
Are you going
I
to be
just caught
disappointed?
myself.
Yeah.
Exactly. So here's the thing. Like, one of the things that I learned on the PCT to wrap this thing up, like, what's the worst that could happen?
Just show up.
Dude, you didn't get eaten by any bears.
No. Yeah, I had this every night. I'd send Jess like a message on my little GPS tracker deal. And it's pre-recorded messages or pre-typed messages. So every night she got the same one. That was to let her know that I was in camp, done moving for the day. I'm safe. And it would say something to the effect of like, no bears have inappropriately touched me today. Because everyone's like, are you going to get eaten by a bear? And like, everyone's concerned about bears eating me and like touching me inappropriately. And I'm like, what is this bear thing about? But yeah, dude.
Let's finish. Let's see if it picks up this audio. This clip is hilarious. Let me just go to
dude.
screen capture here.
I wonder if it will.
Let's do this.
Only you can hear it, Ryan.
I can hear it. Don't worry.
Dude, it's so...
You look upset.
Oh, I inhaled a bug.
I just swallowed a fly.
No big deal.
It was the only... I think that was like the first time I ever inhaled a bug on the trail. You know, and it's so funny. Like, I tell people, like, one of the beautiful things I've learned about that hike, and it's so fun, is like, I look at pictures of myself and videos of myself. I made videos almost every single day for Jess, just to talk to her, you know, and I'd send it to her. I look at pictures and I look at videos, and like, it is a drastic change in like confidence from day one, or even like halfway through California, or even Oregon. And then like, for some reason, something happened in that Columbia River where like, it was almost like I got this. Like, dude, I send my pants home. Like, I'm not wearing any pants. I'm just wearing running shorts. And like, I got, you know, you're continually just dropping stuff and walking and like, just like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, screw it. I got food. I got water. And if I don't have food, I got water. I can find water. You know, like, what is the worst that could happen? Stop worrying and just do it, you know?
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. And, dude, way to conclude the podcast. That was a great way to end it.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, Emory.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
We'll have you on again. Excited to see the podcast. And,
Heck yeah, dude.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Thanks a lot, dude.
Thanks, man.
We're done?